Welcome folks to a video that will go some way to explaining information about the setting of the Traveller role-playing system. Traveller is a science fiction role-playing system where players take on the roles of adventurers, traders, merchants and travellers of the stars, searching for fame and fortune. I shall begin with the basic description at the start of the rulebook. Traveller is a science fiction role-playing game of the far future. Humanity has gone to the stars and found them crowded with other forms of life and other sentient races. And science and technology have vastly advanced over the present day, but the essential nature of humanity is unchanged. Life continues as it does today, only spread out over the sea of stars. A mighty Imperium unites thousands of star systems under a single rule, but it is beset by both internal and external enemies. The Imperium commands the space between the stars, ensuring that civilization endures and trade continues. Megacorporations and feudal lords conduct the bulk of this trade, but there will always be a place for the free trader. Hardy travellers and adventurers on the fringes of known space, dealing in strange goods and smuggled cargoes, doing whatever they can to make a credit. The Traveller setting takes place in the Third Imperium of mankind, the third great empire to stretch across the stars. In the Third Imperium, players take on the role of tramp merchants and mercenaries, wandering the galaxy in search of profit and adventure. The map for Traveller is absolutely humongous, and you will be able to find it by searching for it on the internet. My system that will be used in this setting, while taking place in the Third Imperium, does not use any of the official maps. The subsystem map will be provided in the link, and has also been provided in the first two videos of role-playing session. Traveller planets and systems are set to different technology levels, known as tech levels. Earth as it is now in 2014 is somewhere between tech level 7 and 8. And tech levels go from 0, which is a primitive Stone Age technology, all the way up to 15, where black globe generators suggest a new direction for defensive technologies, and jump 6 travel is possible. Most importantly, tech level 15 allows synthetic anegathics, which means that the human lifespan vastly increases. Planets can have varying tech levels from 0 all the way to 15, with the average normally being 11 and sometimes 12, being an early stellar, an average stellar travel, which means that artificial intelligence becomes possible, and jump 2 travel is also a possibility. There are a few things in the Traveller setting that differentiate it from normal science fiction settings. The first of which is that, while faster-than-light travel has become possible in a roundabout way, faster-than-light communication is impossible. Information travels only as fast as ships do, creating a sort of second age of sail, where information amongst systems travels between ships transporting said information. Communication between other planets in a system can take minutes to hours to go through, dependent upon the distance of said communications. Faster-than-light travel also does not work in the same way as warp drives in Star Trek do, or hyperdrives either. Just turn to the section in question. I will be able to explain to you how they function. They work by using the primary fuel of most vessels. While some vessels function entirely on solar power, or on nuclear power, or battery power, the most common form of drives use liquid hydrogen as a fuel. Jump travel, however, is the only known means by which a vessel may travel faster than the speed of light. To jump, a ship creates a bubble of hyperspace by means of injecting high-energy exotic particles into an artificial singularity. The singularity is driven out of our universe, creating a tiny parallel universe which is then blown up like a balloon by injecting hydrogen into it. The jump bubble is folded around the ship, carrying it into the little pocket universe. The new universe is short-lived, and will eventually collapse, precipitating the ship back into normal space several light years from its original position. These jumps are only safely possible when a ship is more than 100 diameters distant from any object. A vessel could only jump away from Earth, for instance, when it was more than 1.27 million kilometers distant away from it. Gravity can cause a jump bubble to collapse prematurely, bringing a ship back to normal space early. So you couldn't jump from Earth to Mars if the sun was between you. You probably end up close to the sun. Missed jumps are possible, propelling people, if they're lucky, many parsecs from their desired location. And if they are unlucky, trillions of subjective years pass, and all that comes out of the other end is hard radiation caused by protons exceeding their half-life. Each jump only takes a week, but in that week, a ship is completely and utterly cut off from the universe. It hangs in a shimmering bubble of boiling hydrogen, a pocket dimension from which nothing can escape. It cannot communicate with the normal universe, not even by psionic means. While in that bubble, you are utterly alone. Travelling through space is therefore still relatively dangerous in some regards. And as such, while some people travel as passengers, low berths where people are cryogenically frozen are a reality and are used. This technology is not entirely safe, and some people never wake up from low berth freezing. Many large military vessels have a frozen watch crew, which thaw people out in case of an emergency, and after a quick debriefing, send them off to fight, usually when the ship is in desperate need of new crew. Ships are expensive. Very expensive. Most people can't actually take them without having a mortgage, or exceptional favours to pull from their career of choice. The mortgages are what tie characters to the setting, and to adventuring. If there was no mortgage to pay, some characters find it quite difficult to have motive to do things. But the mortgage also provides a grounding in value in the ship. For if a ship was handed out like candy, people would care nothing for their craft. Psionic power is possible, and in the Imperium it is highly distrusted and usually illegal wherever you go. While the Imperium spans thousands and thousands of systems, most places are allowed large amounts of autonomy. There are some species and aliens in the universe that have psionic powers throughout their entire race. And these races tend to have frosty relations with the Imperium at best. The Zodani are all entirely psionic, and the Imperium distastefully dislikes them because they have an authoritarian rule, which is something that the Imperium and their residents dislike. That race, the Zodani, are not going to be encountered in this campaign, as the system in question that I've created, this subsector, is not in any of the normal maps, and is isolated very much from the other systems of the Imperium. While there is still Imperium strength here, it's not common that it is brought externally. The autonomy there is an example herein, this isolated subsector. Looking at the subsector map, you will see that there are lots of hexagons, and the hexagons have the classifications. The key is used as reference. And you will see that there are areas with vast nothing in them, and the grey lines do not connect up to everything. Not all parts of the subsector are as prosperous and successful as the others. Looking to the south of the map, you will see such systems as Piolna and Halara and Fozilra, Isolated and cut off from the main systems, most of them have languished and suffered. Some systems regress in technology, for trade is utterly important to all of these planets. If trade does not come, then items do not come with them. And if people relied on external trade for materials, wealth of knowledge and skilled labourers, the knowledge gaps through the generations will reduce in a technology reduction. Some places, due to accidents with crash-landed colony ships or survivors of wreckages or just being plain forgotten and ignored, have regressed way back to medieval and sometimes even further back. And some places suddenly get discovered after all those years and are catapulted forwards. Which is why, even in a high science fiction setting that is Traveller, you will still find people living in the Stone Age, or the Medieval Ages, or just on the cusp of stellar travel. Not all planets are created equal, and such is the way of Traveller. Technology being so varied, even in subsectors and individual systems, not many things are universal. Robotics varies drastically dependent upon where you come from, but as a general rule, truly artificial intelligence is heavily frowned upon. Some computer systems are sort of deemed to be intelligent, but they generally are not truly intelligent. True AI is dangerous, and the Imperium distrusts it. Extremely smart virtual interfaces and programs that can sort out information that have a friendly face are one thing, but having something able to actually deal with things, autonomous combat robots with their own free will, are for the most part highly illegal. It's slightly less frowned upon with spaceships, but a truly intelligent spaceship can indeed be a dangerous thing. And usually, if it is truly intelligent and allowed, there are permits required. But in general, you'll see robots, but not mass robots. The Traveller setting still uses factories and manufacturing, and you won't see robots everywhere doing everybody's whims. Also to consider is longevity and medical advances. On most planets, medicine is highly technologically advanced and easily available, but anagathics, the synthetic life-enhancing and longevity-increasing drug, are not legal everywhere, and it's very hard to get a hold of them most of the time. It's technology that is only just starting to come into reality in Tech Level 15 worlds, and so those that take anagathics usually struggle to find reliable sources of it, and incur heavy costs. The characters that generated for this session did have the option of taking anagathics to avoid aging penalties, but it did incur financial drawbacks. Most careers allow people to have medical bills slightly supplemented by the employer, and cybernetic replacements or regenerated and regrown limbs or cloned limbs are a possibility. They do cost, however. Some people have prejudices against cybernetically enhanced people, and there is such a thing as the ability to literally plug a computer into your brain so that you can access programs that you slot into a slot in your head, or plugging into a computer directly. Some people have armor grafted under their skin, like Conard. Some people have protocols and programs running in their mind that literally enhance their intelligence or their education. But even in a cybernetically enhanced world, sometimes, like with Yayland, it's who you're born to and who you know that can make all the difference between your success and your failure. And in many ways, the world of the Third Imperium shares many similarities with the world we know. Technology, weapons-wise, has advanced significantly to lasers and railguns, and just slightly beyond the reach the first prototypes of plasma weaponry, weaponry that never requires recharging or reloading, is just being reached. Ships have beam and laser weapons, and missiles. Shields are becoming slightly more of a reality in the form of black globe generators and screen technology, although your average small ship will rely on armor and maneuverability and the skill of their pilot to avoid damage. While not all places in the Imperium will even require combat like that, lasers and guns and swords are all required. For in a ship, the last thing you'd want to do is fire a grenade launcher. Yeah, explosions in a ship are bad news. And so you'll find that in ship-to-ship combat, when people board, people will bring very light and low-damage pistols and melee weapons. The world and the universe at large is just reaching the point of servo-enhanced, fully enclosed combat suits, with the ability to function like vac suits, and environmental suits to resist extreme heat, cold, and radiation. Alien species generally do not join the Imperium as members per se, although some do. Most alien species have their own empires, kingdoms, domains, and humanity generally has things to its own self, although a lot of species are in fact welcomed, and people are welcomed in on their individual basis. People like the Zidani, it can be difficult, especially with their psionic capabilities. The subsector in general that the characters will be working in has its capital in Dran, which if you're looking at the map is sort of top and right. Dran is the economic and industrial and political powerhouse of the subsector, and has some of the highest technology available, as well as some of the most advanced ships. Dran is suitably located on the end of a trade path, and it is on that communication route that communications begin from Dran. Spreading out from Dran, you'll find that as you head further to the west, there's a line of systems that do particularly well for themselves. The Caliso and the Regis systems in particular, heading back up along the pathway when it's given the option forking up to places like Malok and Holosu further to the north. Some planets are isolated. Some are Imperium prisons. Some have been declared too dangerous to live on. Some of them are just plain peculiar. In the top northwest corner of the map, circled in, outlined in dark blue, is the small region of independent space known as the Castorian Empire, an independent faction of humans that do not live under the rule of the Imperium. Further down, to the southwest, bordered in a sort of brownish orange, and one small part to the east, are the elusive and enigmatic Varadi, who distrust humanity and keep to themselves, living on planets that have been terraformed completely to change to their specific living conditions. And over in the southeast, the recently emerged Karak Empire, a hostile and aggressively warlike lizard species that appeared technologically out of nowhere and declared war on the entire subsector. Recently there has been a prolonged period of peace as the war ground to a halt. However, the setting does appear in a time period where the fleets of the Karak people are once again beginning to amass on the borders of their newly expanded territory, and some fear that war may be on the horizon again. Other things of significant note is the fact that there is one company that seems to pervade a lot in the general systems, and that is the Hyperore Mining Company, a multinational on an inter-system scale. Their primary focus is profit through harvesting of natural mineral resources, and over many systems and planets are scattered their outposts, mining operations, and sometimes holiday retreats. Focusing even further, however, as when people in the game eventually travel to other systems, we might go into more detail. Focusing even more on the Esal system. The Esal system is the system where the campaign begins, as each of the characters comes from one of those planets. The Esal system in general is populated significantly in the fact that more than one planet has a significant population. In most campaigns and most settings in Traveller, on the map shows the name of the planet, which is the primary planet that people travel to and trade with. Esal has a number of planets that have significant populations, although to say that everyone has a population of note is being generous. The closest planet to the system has a population of less than 10,000, and the only planets of significant note are Esal, the binary planet Zemos, and the planet slightly further away with a more Earth-like planet, Leorm. Kermimu, which is where Konard is from, has an indigenous population, but it is not in the numbers that Esal and Leorm have. Leorm has a population of 8.2 billion, and Esal has a population that dwarfs even that at 24.5 billion. In general, the system is pretty self-contained with a variety of different planets and governments, and no one government rules over every single planet. The primary focus of the system, Esal, is a planet that has definitely seen better days. Until the last couple of decades, it was Esal that was the centre of the subsector's trade, commerce and political power, and it is now Dran that has supplanted it. While Esal's power slowly grinds and the government and the planet decays to pollution, crime, and massive overpopulation, it is still a technological powerhouse, and its industry still stubbornly refuses to die. It is where many of the local different brands of ship are manufactured, as the Esal system boasts a fine variety of custom designs, one of which is one that was based on a design created in Esal. Esal designed a small intra-system military vessel, and based off that schematic was the Virtue Compact System Patroller, which is the kind of vessel that the campaign crew have purchased. More information about the various planets will be uncovered during play, and there will be other videos during this campaign that will explain other things in more detail as they are encountered in play. Now I shall go over some of the brief gameplay mechanics. Characters in the game primarily do things with skill rolls requiring 2d6 dice. These 2d6 dice typically have an objective of beating an 8+ on the roll. On average, you would fail therefore more than you would succeed, as rolling an 8+ on 2d6 more often than not leads to failure. What modifies this is a character's skill capability. For instance, a character with Gun Combat Shotgun 1, if shooting with a gun, would add a +1, based on the fact that he's shooting with a weapon he has skill in. And say if it was a dexterity-based shot as well, and he had a positive dexterity modifier of +1, dice modifier, or DM for short, he would get +2 to his roll. Now he's rolling a 6+, which is quite possible. But say, for instance, to counter, that the opponent is moving quite fast, and that amount of speed confers a -2 penalty to his dice modifier, he's back to 8+. Damage rolls for various weapons have specific stats. A shotgun may have 4d6 damage, or a dagger may have 1d6 plus 2 damage, and statistical damage takes place by reducing effective stats for a character. A character has 6 primary statistics. Strength, dexterity, and endurance are moderately self-explanatory, and intelligence and education also somewhat. Social standing is different in the fact that it goes to try and explain how a character is perceived and their social position in society. When a character takes damage, he will first take damage off his endurance, and when that reaches 0, he'll start taking damage off his strength and dexterity. If any one of those strength and dexterity reaches 0, he'll fall unconscious. Stats can be recovered over time with rest and with suitable medical skills. Although it is possible with a negative dice modifier to a physical stat that if they choose to exert themselves overly much while they're recovering, they can actually deteriorate. Skill levels can go from anything from 0 to the far reaches of 4 and 5. A character with no skill suffers a -3 dice modifier penalty to any skill roll he makes in a particular skill. Someone who doesn't know how to use a vac suit will suffer a -3. And in fact, with vac suit as a specific exception, the penalty is actually increased even further if they don't have the required skill to use the item. To have skill level 0 in a skill denotes that you have training but lack experience, but you do not suffer a penalty for using the ability. A character with skill level 2 in something could be perceived as using that ability as a professional, and could actually make a living using it. A character with skill level 4 in a skill is considered famous, legendary, and a master at their trade. Most characters typically have some skills at rank 2, or some at rank 1 depending upon how old they are. Skills can improve during the course of the game, but require training. There are no levels or experience caps to speak of, and training is the only way to improve skills. Training takes longer the more skills and the higher skill level they are, and basically the more skilled a person is, the harder it is to improve or gain new abilities. In general, Traveller can be played with anything up to a group of 4 or even 5 people. It can be played solo, provided that they have a ship that's cheap enough. It's flexible in the sense that most times a character and their crew face challenges that are suitable to their abilities. Although sometimes, of course, people can go way over their heads. In general, a crew can expect to sometimes do a little bit of everything. Shooting enemies at one point and running away the next. And campaigns can typically work on the various hooks that the campaign provides, as well as contact allies, enemies, and rivals, another mechanic in the game, to quantify relationships that develop during character development. An ally is exactly what it says on the tin. Someone who actively goes out of their way and would help your character, provided that there is a knowledge that you would do the same for them if they asked. A contact is less so. Sometimes it's just a alliance of convenience, where they will provide information or knowledge or equipment at a fee or a price. They wouldn't go out of their way to rescue the character. A rival tends to prefer not to kill the subject of the rivalry. An enemy has no such qualms. Some of the characters in this campaign have enemies, some have rivals, some have contacts, and some have allies, and all will prove useful or a hindrance, not necessarily in the ways that you think. In general, a Traveller campaign is high space drama with laser guns, explosions, flying spaceships through the cold, infinite nothingness of space, and mystery and unknown elements almost at every turn, with ancient species long forgotten, desolate planets that look habitable but are actually death traps, and pirates potentially chasing people through asteroid fields while missiles fire away. Anything is possible in Traveller. Anything and everything. This video has gone some way to explaining the general setting of Traveller, as well as some basic information about the subsector and the Esal system that the characters in this campaign will be playing. There will be future videos, as stated before, that will go into detail of specific events, planets, people and organizations as they become relevant, if they are of significance. So when we come back, folks, we shall resume Traveller. I'll catch you later, folks. See you then. Later.